Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist conversation with Dion Parson. Man, I'm really excited tonight to have this guest here joining me, someone I've known when I first came to New York way back in the 90s. And we've been we grew up like brothers, man. We just having so much fun learning the music in New York City, man. And I've watched his career blossom as he's watched mine, and he's doing great things, man. It's an honor for me to introduce you guys to Mr. Abraham Burton.
Hey, what's happening, Dion?
I am great, man. How you doing?
Brother, it is so good to see you, It is so good to see you, brother.
Likewise. It's been a while, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's funny how life is, sometimes we're together and sometimes, we're not,
Right.
But it's like when I see you again, it's like we haven't skipped a beat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Kind of like picked up from where we left off. Yeah. It's been a minute, man. So you got so many great things going on, man. I know you're teaching a couple places, and you're in demand as an educator and as an artist performing, man. Let's just talk about. Let's go back. Like, how did you get into the music? Because when I met you, you were like trying to figure just like I was. And we used to do so much sessions and
That's
run
right.
around New York from club to club to club.
That's right. And at your place too. We'd be up there playing with Polo and Ron and everybody jamming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just nailing at it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had that spot down in the Village. That's where you grew up, right?
Well, yeah, we were very lucky, man. My family, we're from Belize, but I was the first in my family born outside of Belize.
Okay.
So my brother and sister, they were born there. My whole family, and when we came up, we were very much in a Belizean household. You understand,
Right.
Especially living in the Village, because we're talking the 70s now. That's a very different time. There weren't many. It wasn't as diverse as it is, as places are now. So we were one of the few black families, or Caribbean families, even in the area, and so we were in Greenwich Village, which is a wild place in its own right. There was so much going on, especially in the 70s, because you had all kind of movements going on. The women's movement was really just starting to take off at that time. At that time, what they had called like the gay movement, that was happening at that time. It was strong, especially in the Village, because that's where, they migrated. Those people were very, they were concentrated in that area. So, there was just a lot of diversity going on, at that time. And music was no exception. There was so much music. I always say, man, I was so lucky. I was so fortunate. I grew up in the Mecca of the jazz world, because everybody came. Nobody was really from New York. Everybody came to New York.
To New York,
and not just New York, but to the Village. Where that's where I lived. That's where I grew up. So just in my town, just where I grew up, I mean, there was, obviously the Vanguard, the Blue Note, the Village Gate, 7th Avenue South. There were, the Bottom Line. Oh man, so many clubs. There's a bunch of them. The Angry Squire was another one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all
Basil.
Of course, of course, Basil.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many. I mean, any night.
55 bar.
Yeah, that's right. The 55 bar. That's right. That there were so many, man. So we were very fortunate. But the way we got into the music is, I had, my childhood friends, Eric McPherson, great drummer, drummer extraordinaire, Eric McPherson, and also another drummer extraordinaire, Mr. Rashid Waits. We grew up together as kids way before music, And, at that time, little did I know that Rashid's father, we knew he was a musician, but we didn't know to the caliber of musician he really was. Because he was just kind of like our father, too. Our families were very tight-knit. Our families, all of our parents knew each other, And so I can remember I was about 11 10 or 11 at that time, maybe 11 at that time. And I remember Freddie Waits. It said, "Look, man, I want you guys." He'd call and say, "Hey, look, go and do this or go and do that," just like if my father would have told me to do it, and you do it. So one day he called me up and he said, "Look, come over to the house. I want you to take my drums and set them up." And so me and Eric met. We went and got his drum set, and that was the start of us roadieing because we were like going to make some money. That's what I was thinking about, work.
Little did you know.
And man, he said, we used to lug that set all over the place, and it was fantastic. It was great. And I just remember what really got me, how I really got into the music is one day he was playing with Richard Davis and Friends, which was oh man, that was one of the most killing groups you could ever see, And so we had set up the drums, and Freddie, Mr. Waits said, "Where y'all going? Where you going?" And we were, we're gonna go hang out. Or he said, "Nah, sit down." He said, "Sit down and learn something." He said something like that. So, we had to sit down. And man, when I tell you, when they started to play, man, I remember it was Richard Davis, Sir Roland Hanna on piano, it was Cecil Bridgewater on the trumpet, Ricky Ford on sax, and Freddie Waits. Woo, man! When I had seen music before, but I had never seen anything quite like that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you honestly, I literally remember listening to the group, and it was so intense that I would forget to breathe, because I was so like, like I had never, nothing had ever grabbed me like that, controlled me like that. And I said, okay, by the time we were finished with that set, I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. This is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need the right exposure and to open you up, to
That's
embrace
right.
it. Yeah.
That's right.
I think at some point we all had that, that moment in our lives when we when that happened. For me, I was 14 in St. Thomas. I thought I knew what jazz was. I was like messing around, doing some stuff. I was a trombone player, but I was playing drums as well. And the guy that started the music program at the University of the Virgin Islands, Dr. Lawrence McClellan, he brought a band to the island, a jazz band. And it was the Rutgers University Jazz Professors.
Right.
I've never heard of Rutgers University. I was, and it was Frank Foster on sax, Ted Dunbar on guitar, Kenny Barron on piano, Larry Ridley on bass, and the great Philly Joe Jones on drums.
Yeah, right.
And just like you, I sat there and I was like, what the hell is
exactly
this? Yeah. But the interesting thing, Abe, I can hear what they was doing. I had no idea what they're doing. It made so much sense. It was like I'm looking around and everything that I'm following the music, but I had no idea what it was. And just like you, when it was all over, I said, "This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life."
Exactly. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. That's why I want you to tell that story because again, all of the cats that I know have a moment like that when they just said, "Wow, this is it."
Yeah. For me, that was definitely it. Although, even before that, because my dad, he used to play records in the house, especially on Saturday morning. We're asleep and he's already playing the music,
Right.
But my dad, we play a lot of island music, a lot of punta, a lot of songs from Belize. He'd play a lot of that music, but then every once in a while he'd throw something else in. A lot of times it could be Gene Ammons, it would be Stitt. Sometimes it was Grover Washington. It was a wide range of music, exposure to different styles of music. So I just really became very appreciative to music in general. I just was like, wow, I just love the sound, just music.
Well, the beautiful thing too is you came up along the time where the music was still present in the clubs, in the streets. There were clubs, there was a lot of places to play and not that many musician. Like when I came to town, people were like, man, there was gigs. You could do 3-4 gigs a day because people were looking for stuff. And you guys had a nice spot down on Bethune Street and sessions, and you come uptown and have sessions. But then the connections, that you ended up having, like, with the Jackie Mack and the Arthur Taylors and stuff like that, is like, because those guys were so connected, they talked about the younger guys. The older guys was into mentoring. What AT called it, the apprenticeship. He's like,
right.
we're about apprenticeship, which was the mentoring process. So you came up through that. I came up through that as well. And I think that's a lot of that is kind of missing, but you're still one of the people that's holding that together, because as you mentioned today, you had all those.
Yeah, man. It's funny you're even saying that, because I said that to them earlier. I was like, man, I understand it's a different time, and I get it. I do. But I do feel an obligation to impart, at least share my experience with them, because it was such a priceless experience with all those people that we were around, man. I was so fortunate. I was around people like Blakey. I was always around drummers. I guess too, because of Freddie Waits too, we were affiliated with a lot of drummers, because he was a drummer, and we met a lot of drummers through him. And I mean, I was, people like Max. I spent a lot of time around drummers. Max, Billy Higgins. Every time Mr. Higgins came to town, we would, we'd be there to meet him, help him with his stuff. And then he would take me, me and Eric out or something, but there was always stuff to learn,
right?
From just being around him, people like that. Max was the same way. Max was one of my favorite people on the planet, because he was very serious with with his message, but it was also he was entertaining to be around, just to watch him. And he was just such a figure, like Max was the type of guy, if he walks in a room, everybody knows he walked into the room. You don't even have to say, "Hey, look, there's my." You just kind of, he demanded that kind of attention, and we were very fortunate, man. And a big part of that too was Eric's mother, Sandra McPherson, because she was a dancer, and she was a very popular dancer. She danced with like Cannonball, with Duke Ellington. She did a lot of stuff, man. Over the years. And so she knew a lot of those people. And that's actually how I got to meet Jackie McLean. It's really through Eric's mother, because she knew Renee McLean. And she had told Renee about us, me and Eric. And so Renee called me. And Renee, I was 14. And Renee called me, and he's like, "Hey, man, this is Renee McLean." Now, I knew who Renee McLean was, because I had all his records. But when he said that, I thought it was Eric playing around. So you could imagine what my response was. I was like, I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're Renee McLean." Well, and I'm saying all kind of messed up stuff. And Renee said, "What?" He said, and when he said that, I was like, "Wait a minute, that didn't sound like Eric." And he said, "Man, look, man, I don't know who you think you're talking. This is Renee McLean." I was like, "What?" Because why would they be calling me? You understand what I mean? And then he said, "Man, I got a rehearsal. And Sandra said that you're a saxophonist. Would you like to come?" And I was like, "Man, just tell me where to go, and I'll be there." So me and Eric went up there, and a bunch of guys were walking in, and such, this piano player, and it ended up being Hotep Galetta, Nat Reed.
Hotep, man.
But I didn't know any of them, because this was actually the first rehearsal of that group.
Of that band. Okay, wow.
You see? So me and E are there, and then I see this kind of chubby white guy kind of come in, and, I'm not thinking nothing of it, and I was like, "Okay, he's carrying a saxophone. All right, whatever, And, we didn't have internet back then, so I didn't really know what Jackie McLean looked like. Right. I had an idea. I've seen a couple of little folks, but there was no internet. There was nothing like that.
Right. You couldn't do your research.
Yeah, not like that. You know what I mean? I've seen little pictures of him here and there. And plus, he was much older, and when he came in, I wasn't paying him no mind at all. Boy, when he put that saxophone in his mouth, I turned to Eric immediately. I said, "Yo, Eric, that's Jackie McLean." And Eric said, "No, no, that's a white cat. I said, man, I'm telling you, that's Jackie McLean.
Yeah.
You dig? And of course, it was him.
Mm.
And man, I was a big Jackie McLean fan. Big fan.
The interesting thing is when I met you were playing alto.
That's right. That's right.
And then somewhere along the line, you switched to tenor.
I-
When did that happen? Because
I'll tell you what happened. Well, I didn't really switch to tenor. I
Okay.
just what had happened was, I've been playing a lot of alto. I love tenor players anyway. I'm a tenor player. Yeah, so is Jackie McLean. Jackie's a tenor player.
Okay.
That's what he's hearing. He's straight out of Dex, Leicester. He's coming from that area. But what really happened was that I got the call from Louis Haynes. This is after AT had just passed. Actually, I think the first person to call me was Roy Haynes. That was the first one. Mr. Haynes had called me, and he was like, "Listen, man, this is back then they call you themselves. It's not like you have the management call you."
That's one of the things I always respected about our generation. They were really, really set on speaking to the musicians.
That's what I'm talking about.
Management is going to call you. They called you. I mean, even to this day, certain cats that I still associate with, they pick up the phone and call you.
Yeah, that's something I respect that too, man.
Yeah.
Also, it tells you a lot. It's different. If you have the guy call you himself, and Roy Haynes had called me and he said, look, we said AT has been gone now for about a year. He says, I think enough time has passed. And he said, and I think it's time for us to do something, And I was, are you crazy? Of course. And at the exact same time, like within days, Louis Hayes had called me and said the same exact thing. He said, AT has, AT, because they were all tight.
They're all tight, yeah.
Oh, man, I used to be rehearsing up at AT's, man, and Max would be up there, or Louis Hayes would be up there. Them cats would be having a taste, hanging out, dancing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was a different time, man. And so when I went to Louis Hayes's rehearsal, he had a book, and his book was all in B flat because I think it was oh man, what's wrong with me? His name is escaping me right now, and I don't know why. He's my good friend and such a great player too. Oh man. Anyway, there was a tenor player playing with him at that time, so the book was in B flat.
Okay.
So rather than transposing, that's a lot of work. I thought that was going to be a lot of work. So I said, man, it's a good opportunity for me to try a little bit of B flat, a little bit of tenor, and that's really how that kind of kicked off. And it was really Lou that really pushed the tenor, because what I used to do was I used to play the book in B flat, but then I would solo on alto.
On alto, okay.
Because I was strong. I wasn't as strong on tenor. And I'm, man, you're playing with Lou.
Yeah.
Man, Lou is strong, So I remember one day I was doing that for a couple of gigs with him, for a while, for a couple of months. And then Lou said to me one day, I can never forget, we were walking in the back of the room. He says, man, when are you gonna leave those crutches at home and learn how to play that tenor saxophone? And I said, okay. He said, you can do it. Do it here. He was giving me the opportunity to learn the instrument here. He said, you do it on this bit. He said, leave that at home.
I said, that's a great opportunity. How many people, most cats would be like, go share them when you finish, I'll come back.
You understand what I'm saying? Understand? Those guys were, man, I've had so much support from some really incredible, beautiful musicians, man. Because they didn't have to do that. He didn't need me. He could add anybody,
Yeah. Well, it says a lot to who you are. I mean, again, back then, the musicians talked, and they would, once they choose a young guy, they would all mentor that young guy, and you would with Taylor's Wailers at a time, and that was the extension of J Mac, as AT and J Mac was close, and then the Louis Hayes and then the Roy Hayes connection, You know, I mean, that's how, because I spent a lot of time with AT. I actually interviewed him for my
AT
master's
loved
paper.
you, man.
Yeah.
AT talked about he loved you. And he didn't love everybody. He loved you.
And AT was rough. He was rough. Listen, I remember I met him through Marc, and when when Taylor's Wailers would be rehearsing, because I lived a block away, I would sit on the mailbox outside from like, you know, you guys would be there from like 10, 11 in the morning till like 2, 3, 4 o'clock.
Oh, easily 4 o'clock. Yeah, easily.
All day, man. And I would just sit on the mailbox and listen. And then when you all finish and you would walk out and everybody go on the train, he would come up to my crib and talk about the rehearsals. I'm not gonna get into it. But we would sit there till like 3 o'clock in the morning, man.
Yeah,
talking. And then we'd go out to eat. You know, he loved those French
restaurants. Loved you, man. I remember him talking about you.
We used to go, man, we had so much. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot. Ooh, and you know, the beautiful thing is that book he wrote, Notes and Tones.
Oh yeah.
It was, you know, it's edited, but he would play the original, like 8-track, you know, reel-to-reel recordings. Because what he did when the cats came to France, he would invite them over for like lunch or dinner and the night off, cook dinner, and they would just sit there and talk for hours.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And the book is the conversation, but it would be like 4 to like 6, 7 hours worth of conversation, and he would edit it down. Yeah. And we would be sitting there listening to those conversations, man. And he would talk me through it, narrate it. Oh man, I learned so much from him, man.
Great. Man. Yeah. AT was by far. I mean, I learned so much from so many people. I'm so grateful. So great. Every time I think about it, I'd be like, wow, these people were so great, and they took their time
to
teach me.
Yeah. As much as they love to play, they love to share.
Yes.
You know, but you know, it wasn't like that with everybody. You know, you just have to be in it a certain way. You know, but yeah, man. But all the groups, man. Roy Haynes' group Max's group was great. I mean, man. Yeah, it was a beautiful time, man. You know, just going to hear the music at that time. Art Blakey, you know.
I must have seen Blakey at least 200 times in my life, you know.
Yeah, because Blakey did that stint between Christmas and New Year's at Sweet Basil every year.
He was at Basil all the time.
All the time,
And he was there sometimes for 6 weeks.
Yeah, you know? And then he had Bradley's. Don't forget Bradley's, the after hour spot.
That's right. And then Tony Williams, I used to see him because he would do the Vanguard. He would do the Blue Note. Mm-hmm. You know, he would do the Vanguard. He would do not the Blue. He did the Blue Note, but that's not the one I meant. The Village Gate. He would be at the gate. Yeah. Woo!
Yeah.
Man, I used to see Tony all the time, man. You know, so fortunate.
So let me ask you this, man. You know, growing up in the mecca of the the jazz hub, New York City, Greenwich Village, like having all of this information, knowledge, and everything, and like fast forward to now, you're teaching. You're at Rutgers University. You're still at Hart School.
No, I'm just at Rutgers now.
Just at Rutgers, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's a different hat now. You know, like share with us, your teaching philosophy and some of the things you present to your students.
Wow, yeah, it's a wide spectrum because when I teach, first of all, I need to understand the student, like where they are, what their interests are, where is it that, because not everybody wants the same thing, That's something I've noticed, I've learned over the years, teaching. I think at first I used to go in and I'm thinking everybody is interested in what I wanted in life.
Right.
You understand? But that's not what everybody wants. Some people, they just want to learn, play a little bit, know how to do it, which is good. That's fine, So for me, like these students that came over to my house today, I was even telling them this today. I said, I don't talk to everybody like this. You guys I'm talking to like this because you're here for a reason. There's something you're looking for. And I'm going to try to share that with you the best that I can. And I'm very straightforward with students. But I think that they really appreciate that. I really don't have any time to, sugarcoat or anything. I try to be honest because we don't have a lot of time. and we have to get to what it is we're trying to get to. I have to try to impart this information because it's important. You understand? And for you to get it, and so that you can have it and you can take it and pass it on as well. You understand? We don't have a lot of time, so I try to be very honest with them. I'm very much into the history of the music. I've seen on the internet a lot of people. I've seen them talking about the you don't have to do this and you don't have to, and you know what? And I agree with them. You really don't have to. You don't have to do any of that. Like I've seen some guys talk about, oh, you don't need to learn the history. You don't have to know. That's totally fine. You don't have to, and I agree. However, if you're trying to get into this music, if you're trying to get to the depths of this music, like anything, you would want to study it. You want to learn the lineage of it, so that you're more of a complete artist. You know what you're talking about. You can't be bamboozled. You can't be fooled. You know what it is. You know your work. You know. I always use the example: if you go to a doctor, and you say to the doctor, "Oh, my lungs, my lungs are hurting," and the doctor's like, "Lungs? Wait, let me look at the book and see if where are the lungs?" Is that the doctor you're gonna stay with?
Right.
You want somebody that knows completely, knows their job. There's a big difference between changing a tire and being a mechanic.
Right.
You understand? A lot of people can change tires, but not everybody's a mechanic. You understand what I mean? And this is what we have to do. I always feel as an artist, you want to know and for me, I'm constantly learning. I'm learning every day, man. I learn about new musicians, man. I love it. You should see my log. My students, they have to keep a log, Right now, my log is easily in the 300s now, of musicians I'm just and I'm talking about each group, saxophones, drummers,
Right.
and I have them in order, their timeline, what they played, what era they were in. Why do I do that? I do it for me, man. I do it because I think it's important. You don't have to do it, but I think it's important, and it solidifies, it fortifies what I do. So when I play, I'm playing with something that
Right.
I've been working
The
on.
Substance and understanding.
There you go.
Yeah. It makes sense, man. I remember one of the last things I had to do getting my master's at Rutgers. We had a part of my final was identifying 100 drummers.
Yes.
And there was so many guys was like 100 drummers, really? And I was like, bro, yes, 100 drummers.
That's not even that many, really. If you think it's the whole
yeah.
The thing, I did that at Rutgers too when I got my master's there, but I did that years ago with Jackie McLean.
Right.
Jackie had us do that, and his list was a lot more than 100.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, the information is there, and you're right. Knowing the history gives you depth and knowledge, but you also knowing the history shows you the evolution of the music, the instrument, the spirit. The economic times, because what was happening back in the 60s, what was happening in the 70s, what was happening in the 80s and the 90s. It was all around the culture, the economics.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the music. You're getting
it's not just the music. Yeah.
Of the times, of the era,
exactly.
of the evolution, of the things that are added, the things that were extracted. You're getting all kind of information. That's why I tell everybody, for me, I think it's important. I think it's important to do the history. You don't have to do it, but I think it's important because anything you don't check out, you know how much stuff you're missing?
Yeah.
You know how much, if you're like, oh, I don't really listen to that era. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You
and
sure?
So the era you're listening to doesn't make sense because you don't know how that came about.
Yeah. Exactly, bro. But
you that's why I wanted to ask you that question because we've had this conversation in the past, and I remember doing that gig with you up in Boston at one time, man, and the conversation we had during that it's about all of this, and then one of the first things that brought us together was our Caribbean heritage.
That's right.
Being from St. Thomas, and you've been there with me to the islands, and I pride myself on having that type of musical foundation or cultural foundation, and so and I see the same and hear the same thing with you. We're going to start to check out your music in a minute, but I hear that, And it's really interesting because coming from the Caribbean, we can make that connection also.
Oh yeah.
So what's happening?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man. But yeah, so thanks for sharing that, that education concept, because a lot, and I'm glad you started off by saying every student doesn't want the same thing. So you have to, you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm learning them as well. I'm learning them. I'm just like, okay, so that I can better support what it is they're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That's
great, man. So I want to move on to your music, because as a musician that you are, I mean, over the years, through the mentoring that you've gone through, and all the grades that you played with, and being an educator, you still have your own group, the Abraham Burton Quartet, and you present your own music, and you shared some with us. And one of the first songs you shared with us is a song called Avellino. And yes, can you tell us what's the concept behind that song?
Yeah, I mean, Avellino is a beautiful little town, really, in Italy. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were there. I just remember us being there, and we were playing in this. Oh man, this beautiful castle. You know how they have a lot of the concerts in castles and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we were playing in this really beautiful castle, and really I was in the midst of writing this tune. I just remember I really wanted to try it, and so we actually tried it that night at the gig. It was the first time we ever played it, and it just set such a vibe, and it was so perfect. And so afterwards, it was for a TV show we were doing. And so afterwards, they were interviewing me, and the woman said, she said, so that song that you played, it was so beautiful. And she says, what's the name of that song? And I said, it doesn't have a name, but I think Avellino would be perfect for that, and they were like, oh yeah. So it just stuck as Avellino.
Great, beautiful. Well, let's check it out. Abraham Burton, Avellino. That's Avellino by Abraham Burton. Beautiful.
Appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. Who's in the band?
But that. Oh, I think that one is. Man, I'm not sure. I don't remember what album that was from. That's with Eric for sure. Eric is on drums. I just can't remember. Boy, you know, I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember.
Okay, but that's Eric on drums, man. Beautiful, but it's a beautiful tune, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank
you. Yeah. Sometimes simplicity is elegant, so lovely. Yeah, yeah. Great music, man. Love your writing. Love it. Yeah, man. Pretty. I mean, I can hear that. I can hear that in Italy. You know, just
Yeah, right. Yeah, I see what you say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah.
And one of your listeners says, when you teach a kid to play or sing, it's like adding water back to the well. Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Whoever said that, I love that. Wow.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah. Beautiful music. Well, let's move on, man. You know, that was a nice, easy go in, set the tone, and now we have I Love You More.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a ballad, something I wrote for my mother.
Okay. Let's check this out. I love you more. That's for moms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something we used to. She would say, "I love you," and I would always say, "I love you more."
Oh yeah, yeah. That's yeah. You don't need smooth jazz to have slow jazz. It'll make it jazz. No, you're right because I'm sitting here listening with my eyes closed, and it's a modern sound with the openness, the space that just makes it, and it grooves. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love the spectrum of music, man. I love to burn. I love all of that stuff, but I love just music too.
Oh yeah.
Coming from my dad, he played such a wide variety of music.
Mm.
I love the music. Yeah.
Love your horn and the simplicity of your composition.
Oh, thank you.
So peaceful. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man.
Oh, wow. Everyone is.
What's the name of the album that this is on?
This. Oh, by the way, so I do remember who was on that first cut. The first cut was Desron Douglas, Eric McPherson, and David Bryant on piano. Okay. That was on the first cut. This one is with Marvin Sewell on guitar.
Oh, okay.
And Lucas Curtis on the bass. Me and the great Rashid on the drums. Now this album is coming out. This actually hasn't even been out yet. This isn't even out yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is something from a project with me and my brother Rashid.
This is Marvin Sewell on guitar. Okay.
Yeah, brother Marvin. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard him in a while.
Yeah. Well, Marvin, he's killing, man. He's a beautiful player.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Boy, I'm seeing some really nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's very nice.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Well, let's continue, man. I'm excited about this next song only because it's like Yard Vibe from Belize. I'm like,
That's the way you call punta music, man.
There's punta music. So explain to our listening audience. You're from Belize, and the music from there is called
punta.
Punta
is really it's derivative from the Garifunas, right? The Garifuna. They're people that really were very much connected to their African heritage. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they actually migrated from Africa through to St. Vincent, from what I understand, first. And then from St. Vincent, they just spread the African culture just throughout all of Central America, definitely. And I'm sure a lot of it went down to South America too, but definitely Belize has a very strong, what we call Cary, or the Garifunas, the people that are derivative from that African, culture, So they bought, their food, they bought a lot of the language, and the music too. So this music is punta. It's a play off of what punta is,
Right. Okay. Well, let's check it out. Punta. Yeah. I love it, man.
Oh,
It's like
fun,
it's
man.
cool, bro. You could go on all night.
Yeah, right. It's just, dance music, fun.
Yeah. Just like with the elements, it's like you got the drums, the snare drum, the shakeré, the
Got it.
bongos, the
You got
congas,
it.
and you just vibe, man.
Yeah,
And
we
the
just have
bass, I said,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know how we doing at the Caribbean, man. You know how that is.
Yeah.
You know how we go.
Islands at its best, vibrant and energetic.
Yeah,
You
man.
got Rifuna music and dance style. Yeah,
Man.
And and it's all connected. Love your interpretation of Punta. It's what a lot of folks don't realize is like coming from the Caribbean. There's a sound in the Caribbean that's from island to island. It's the same. A lot of the same rhythms call something different. We call it calypso. You guys call it punta.
Right.
Somebody's call it zouk. Somebody's call it mento.
That's right.
Dancehall. It's all similar, related. And then we get to the States, and it's still connected. It's just a different flavor.
Of course it is. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just a slightly different flavor,
Yes. Yep. So we have another comment here. A more modern punta variation incorporates electric guitar and keyboards, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's obviously different styles of punta. Different styles. There's real traditional styles that really don't use more than my father. I remember he used to play. What do you call it? Accordion.
Yeah.
He would do some. There was an old man, a gentleman by the name of, I think it was Mr. Peters, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Peters. When we used to listen to his music, he only had a couple of pieces, maybe a trio or something, and oh man, but it sounded like 25 people just because of the rhythm that they played with, and they understood the music and they understood each other as artists, and of course this is more of a modern style, with
right.
guitar. But they have even more modern punta where it's like, and some of these groups you hear playing punta now, it's killing, like dance music, and they're doing all kinds of different things with it. It's beautiful.
Beautiful, man. Well, thanks for sharing that, man. Before we let you go, we have one more song I would love to squeeze in, and this song is entitled "Pillars of Creation."
Oh, Pillars, yeah.
Yeah. So let's check this out.
All right.
I'm gonna wrap up the show with "Pillars of Creation" by Abraham Burton. space that you don't play is what makes it that I've enjoyed all evening. Yeah, man.
Oh, that's so nice. People are so kind. Very kind.
Yeah. Serene, soulful, majestic, sultry, elegant, beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate
you.
These are great comments. Thank you so much, really.
Yeah. This reminds me of world music. Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, sounds of the diaspora. That's what it's about here.
Yeah.
And Abe, I just want to thank you, man, for just agreeing to be on the show and sharing your beautiful music. You've covered a wide spectrum, which is your influence, which I'm really happy you did, and presented what you presented so our audience can hear, the great things that you're doing. I think I have the best seat in the house because every week I just get to hang out with my great friends and check out you guys' music. And man, it's such an honor, having you on the show and catching up with you. It's been too long, but I know we're going to be seeing a lot of each other.
Yes, we're going to keep in better contact. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. Before I let you go, can you let our audience know how they can follow you, how they can purchase your music?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, Abraham Burton Jazz. Abraham Burton Jazz. Please, definitely, because now I'm starting to really get into the whole the Instagram thing. My daughter's been on me for years. So now I'm starting to like it, though. It's kind of cool. It's fun. So definitely look. Plug in. Hit us up. Look on the on my Instagram, and we'll let you know when we're playing around and things of that nature. But I do want to say, Dion, thank you, my brother. Thank you for reaching out. It means a lot, man. I mean, as just friends, of course, man, it's great. But also just as artists, man, I've always really had so much love for what you do. And that ride symbol, Dion, your ride symbol. I gotta throw that in. You know what it is. I love your ride, baby.
Thank you, bro.
I had to say that.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. Well, thanks again, Abraham, for sharing your music, your story. Everything about you, man, has really been an honor. And continued success to you. All right.
Thank you, my brother. Talk soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Take care. That's the great Abraham Burton sharing his music and stories with us. Man, it's so great catching up with him. It's been a long time, but we had a great time tonight. Join me next week as we bring to Sounds of Diaspora another great artist, man. Someone, again, like Abraham, I've known for many, many years and toured with as well. His name is Michael Bowie, amazing bassist, and we look forward to having him on the show. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure sharing this show with you and sharing the artists of the evening. You guys take care, and we will see you next week.